All right. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. We are so excited for this afternoon's webinar, Enabling AAM at Scale, the Role of Service Providers in the AAM Ecosystem. So my name is Shannon Walker. I am the Director of Programs here at AUVSI and will be your host for today's webinar. If you've joined us before, you know that we have a couple of housekeeping items that we always like to go over before we get started. So, as always, the participant lines, attendee lines will remain muted throughout the webinar. We are recording today, and a viewing link will be sent out to all attendees within the next few days. Please note you can view all of our webinar recordings on our platform, AVOL. If you are listening to our webinar this afternoon and you need any technical assistance, no sound, no video, something like that, please send a message to our webinar leader using the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and they will be able to assist in troubleshooting. We are absolutely opening up our discussion today for Q&A. So attendees, you are encouraged to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be saved to be answered more towards the end of the program, but please feel free to submit them at any time throughout today's presentation. Another important thing to note, the Q&A button is different than the chat, so just make sure you're submitting all of those content questions for our panel today using the Q&A button, which can be found along the bottom bar next to the chat. If you don't see it, click the More option, and it should be there for you. All right, well, enough from me. Let's go ahead and get started. We would really like to welcome and thank Viasat for their support of today's webinar, and we're really excited for today's lineup of speakers. So, moderating our conversation today is Marek, Senior Manager, Commercial UAV Market Development at Viasat. Joining him will be Matthew Hill, General Manager at Gotonomi, Gino Jensen, the Chief Technology Officer at Galaxy One Communications, and Cheng-Yu Tang, Chief Commercial Officer at Videosoft. So this is such an excellent lineup. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. And with that, Marek, I will hand it over to you to get us started.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today. As mentioned, my name is Marek Rakowski. I am the Business Development Manager for UAV at Viasat. In this context, UAV involves anything that flies really in this new wonderful age. So UAVs, eVTOLs, advanced air mobility, UAS. And as mentioned, I'm joined today by a few esteemed panelists here. Friends and colleagues. As part of the Viasat ecosystem, we do pride ourselves on working with most reputable companies in the advanced air mobility space. And I'll turn over here, as on screen, to Matt, Gino, and Cheng-Yu for their introductions.
So I'm Matt Hill, General Manager for Gotonomi. Thank you very much, Marek. Gotonomi is a value-added manufacturer, building and developing the miniaturized terminals that go on the UAV, but we're also a distribution partner for the Viasat airtime, and we do that via Galaxy One. So we provide customers with those data packs, but actually have some of the benefits of the Galaxy One value adds that they develop that we can offer to our customers. We operate out of a company called TZP, and they are the development partner for Viasat and Inmarsat and have been for over 10 years. So we've got an amazing team that have got an unrivaled knowledge of the L-band network and terminals. I'll hand over. Thank you.
Gino, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gino Jensen. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Galaxy One Communications. And as Matt introduced us here, our role here is to provide a unified platform to deliver data, services, connectivity, and accountability to this space, and to provide it at a level that's 99.9% available. So high-end availability, high availability, that's our product, and also the platforms that support it and report on it. So that's and thank you for the introduction. Cheng-Yu.
Sure. Hi, my name is Cheng-Yu. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Videosoft Global. And we are actually a company that's supporting all the ecosystem today present. And we are not only a video, let's say, compression and the transmission player, but most importantly, to provide a scalability as well as the network orchestration enhancement to the ecosystem to allow, the end user, especially in the UAV and AAM operations, to be efficient, cost effective, as well as most importantly, mission critical application enabled. Thanks for the invite, and very glad to be here.
Thank you, Cheng-Yu. Thank you, Gino, Matt. Really appreciate it. So we are indeed here to talk about the role of service providers to the advanced air mobility ecosystem. We'll start off with a short video that sort of shows how we tie this together.
Hi, I'm Tony Spouter. I work for Viasat. We wish to bring all of the prerequisites from our commercial air transport safety solutions into this uncrewed category.
The brief was given to us was very clear. Go after the lowest size, the lowest weight, the lowest power, and the lowest cost terminal you can get, and try and disrupt the market. Today we're working with one of our new partners, Aero Solutions, who are a drone development company. They've developed a test platform that allows companies such as us, a technology provider, to put our products through their paces.
We strongly believe that the uncrewed platforms and market for platforms doing air taxis, delivery, cargo, flying at altitude will need to be safely integrated into commercial airspace. And we bring that network, that solution. However, this solution lends itself to many, many use cases, including inspection surveillance, anywhere where remote communications or communications at altitude are required. The assured communication link through weather and the physics of the L-band network allow us to provide reliable, assured connectivity for emergency solutions, as well as working with our Gotonomi and partners and people like Videosoft, we can actually do a decent quality of video through the same link whilst maintaining command and control.
My name is Stuart McCone. I'm CEO of Videosoft Global. We've got a bunch of new technology that we're showing, new features on the software, partnership with Gotonomi, running on the Viasat L-band satellite terminals, delivering real-time video solutions to autonomous platforms.
We've achieved this with market feedback. Compared to some of our competitors, we have a higher data rate, up to 200 kilobit per second.
We will demonstrate BVLOS flight, beyond visual line of sight flight, with robust communication in preparation for this to scale globally in the uncrewed market.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we can see how that ecosystem comes together with different partners and stakeholders. And we'll jump right into the first question here, which is, what role do third-party service providers play in supporting the stakeholders in advanced air mobility? To tie this together, we have here an example from the ICAO working paper from the Global and Holistic Vision for Advanced Air Mobility Ecosystem. And this is an example. It's not exhaustive, but certainly it's a good example as to the different aviation and non-aviation stakeholders that are present today, who obviously have a role to play and then have a stake in what kind of information is exchanged with them, but also rely on these partners and service providers for their information, for data, for accuracy, and for a myriad of services, which we will examine later on. So the first question I'll put to Gino is what role do third-party service providers play in supporting these stakeholders?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I think that one of the roles that we need to play is to be part of all of the different stakeholders' requirements, and to understand and to have knowledge and have some expertise in these different applications and systems that are being deployed out in the marketplace. this is a global service. So what's deployed in one part of the world may not be deployed in another part of the world, but we need to support it, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to be able to work with the owners of these different applications to deliver it and ensure that it's delivered on a real-time basis. So I think that's a heavy task, and that's something that we've been doing for 15 years, and it's a cost, but it's what allows this service to actually deliver. So I think that's a super important part of the role.
Thank you, Gino. Matt, any comments?
Yeah, complete agreement with what Gina's just said. And the fact that you've had to go for quite a small font to get the number of stakeholders into that one bubble of the Venn diagram just shows you what sort of complex landscape this is, whilst being a relatively young landscape. So if you just put oneself into the shoes of the operator, so the person who's had the entrepreneurial idea of how to make money using this new paradigm of autonomous uncrewed aerial vehicles, they're focused on their own mission, they're focused on their end customer, and they do not want to invent all the elements you see in this Venn diagram, but they have to interface with it to have a safe flight. So the service providers are providing a level of education as well as their product to those end customers that they can then trust. And it pains me to say, as someone who makes terminals for a living, people don't actually want a terminal. They want reliable communications. So, they want to be told why the service delivers them something that they need, the regulator needs, and will give everybody confidence in this space.
Thank you, Matt. Cheng-Yu, I'll ask you the same question, but maybe with a slightly different tangent. Do you believe that the stakeholders are the ones driving the application sets that are required? Or do you believe application providers like yourself have a role to play in bringing novel new ideas to this particular market? Sorry, am I still there?
You're muted.
I'm very sorry. My apologies. So try to catch up. Marek is really excellent questions. I think that it's more a hybrid from what we see in the ecosystem. So I think that where Videosoft can provide based on all the infrastructure and manage the service that our ecosystem that presents, we give a layer of intelligence through the video streaming and also through the network orchestration enhancement to give that decision-making enhancement power to the end user. And I think also, to provide through the bandwidth optimizations, you can enable more and more value-add services from a scalability point of view to the network future evolvement. So I do think this is a collective kind of a collaboration from the service definitions to the enablement deployment itself.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. We'll go into our next question, which is around the service-based models, whether they are unique and bespoke to each and every operator. Some operators and some manufacturers deem everything to be vertically integrated. We must do it in-house. So the question around this is the services themselves. There's such a myriad of services, whether it be, as we see here, traffic management service, connectivity service, providing this data exchange. We'll get into a little bit more as well. There's the operational side of things. There's weather. So there's a myriad of services where, quite frankly, it's honestly unimaginable for one operator to do this integrated vertically or have everything in-house. So I think, third-party service providers have a role to play, a critical role to play in enabling safe and efficient communication, safe and efficient scalable integrations. scalable integration into their operations for advanced air mobility. So the question, perhaps back to Cheng-Yu to start, is, how do these modular service-based models compare to anything that is bespoke or vertically integrated within one organization?
Well, from all those building blocks of the service kind of modules, we look at them from functionality point of view. They're quite distinct. But if we look at it from a service provisioning point of view, they are all kind of harmonizedly linked together. So the fundamental question is how I look at all those service modules more as a Lego block built on, but beneath the foundation that we are building together, how to ensure that we have the modularity as well as the scalability to continue to host those dynamic and AI empowered later on analytics into those service kind of a block. It's going to be a very interesting challenge and opportunities for all the community. So I think based on the infrastructure that Galaxy One putting together and the user terminals edge gateway that Gotonomi provides through the Viasat service and connectivity, I think we can build some holistic foundations to provide the bandwidth optimized kind of solutions into those different building blocks for all the dynamic needs to be enabled when the time comes. That's at this 15,000 feet level. This is how I see how the industry will move forward with those individual kind of service modules, from traffic management to the C2 as well as the operation efficiency improvement.
Very true, very true. You mentioned Galaxy One. Gino, would you have any comments on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've worked in both those environments throughout my career, and I can remember going outside of a vertically integrated company, and going, you know what, I need to solve this dilemma here. We're not doing it really well, so let me try to integrate a module here so that I can at least get that off my plate and not focus on that. That's not the product. The product is getting this in the air, and not being an expert at a particular data model. So, I think that. While that, you'll see a lot of companies come out there and do, vertically integrated solutions and systems and try to be an expert at everything. I think what the advantage is for us is that we provide modules that are deliverables. Each module is a deliverable. Each module checks a box that is a requirement, and it's very easy to tell if we're delivering it or not. We work real close with Gotonomi and Videosoft in the sense that troubleshooting and delivering on a change, it's super efficient now, because we can really quickly go to the table, look at what's working, what's not working, and make changes and move forward. It's just so much more efficient when you have everything in a modular form that has very, very clear deliverables. So I think that's a huge advantage. We're very nimble. If somebody wants to make a change to the algorithm, we can. It takes within a day rather than weeks to suss it out. So.
I think agility and nimbleness is where you really need that kind of flexibility, not only from a service provider perspective, but also from the stakeholders. They need to, I guess, adapt to what's available at a certain time and build the requirements for additional services to come. So certainly good perspective there. Well, we'll jump into a topic that we know well here at Viasat in terms of connectivity and what that really means for connectivity across these different market segments, environments, aircraft types, what have you, obviously including beyond visual line of sight operations. There's a lot of talk, about a C2 link and what a C2 link needs to be. Again, the top portion here is from the ICAO working document, and the bottom half is just something that we put together that talks about essentially the interrelationship between the aircraft, the operational stations, the ground, and the communication. And there's a lot of perhaps misinformation or different interpretations, I should say, rather, as to what the command and control link needs to be, and whether that is focused uniquely on controlling the aircraft, commanding the aircraft, or whether that includes some of these additional services. So Matt, over to you in terms of, what does the C2 link mean to you? And essentially, how does this connectivity support operations across the different segments?
I think for me, the C2 link is the element that we must preserve and prove to be robust and resilient and available at all times. That occupies a portion of the available bandwidth of any chosen communication strategy. So I put it in that bucket. That is the command and control that goes alongside the availability of some of the what I term payload data. So that is absolutely some of the telemetry from the airframe that gives some added data and real-time video, for instance, that you can use as much of that remaining data as you want. So, what's the second part of your question, Marek?
No, I think you've answered, Matt. It was really in regards to whether or not the C2 link is, just unique to this command and control concept, or is there more to it than that? I think you've answered that piece.
Fine.
In terms of the data sharing between the different stakeholders, again, what levels of automation do we need, and what do we expect to see as the operations of each of these stakeholders evolve? This diagram again referenced the ICAO working document. We'll use other references as well, but in this particular case, I found it quite interesting. There's an architecture which they call the 2025 architecture, which seems to be a myriad of links between different stakeholders and data providers. And then on the right hand side, what reminds me of good old fashioned Ethernet token ring for those that did computer science studies in the 80s. So it seems to have a much more circular flow. Equally, here we have two references, one from the ICAO working document with regards to automation and data exchange, and another reference, which is really a recommendation from the Advanced Air Mobility Interagency Working Group as to what they call the free flow of information among air traffic management services. But again, I think the notion of automation and data exchange doesn't need to be limited to that traffic management in cooperative environments. So I'll start with you, Gino, again, and then maybe give it over to Cheng-Yu. What are your thoughts about the automation? Do we need a particular protocol that needs to be maintained, and how do you see this data exchange going?
Yeah, it's funny. I just the term protocol, I knew that would come up, and so I actually got off on a little bit of a rabbit hole looking up. Okay, what are we talking about? There's so many different ways we look at protocol in the in the engineering world. Protocol and how we manage it, protocol and deliver it, protocol and what we do with it, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think we need to have a standardized protocol for sure. But I don't think we should build something that's unique because then it becomes less collaborative, right? And I was writing a note down that that part of our success in this space as it moves fast and it scales fast is that we try to standardize on protocols and systems that are familiar to our customer base. Everybody in this that's attending this, they started off by starting off with some basic standard protocols and procedures and systems, and then started developing things that are very unique to them and their particular product offering. So I think that's real important. Part of what we another part of our success is that that we look at the data itself is the customer's data. You know, that data is theirs. We don't look at our database as something unique and something protective. Our database that has your data in it, it's yours. You can pick it up any way you want. You can put it into our system and take it out in a different way as you like. I think our special sauce is how we present it and develop it and distribute it. So, you know, in the U.S., they treat database intellectual property a lot different than the rest of the world. We pick the rest of the world. It's your database. It's your data. Just because we, you know, assemble it in a particular way doesn't make that unique. It's important to get that data to you how you want it. So, oftentimes people dump their data into our systems and ask for it out in a different way. That's fine. So I think that's real important. So this is a really, really a topic that's close to our heart in the sense that we try to be as open as we can, and foster the open standards. So
you raise a very good point there about, you know, data privacy and security concerns. It's something that I guess inherently needs to be built into this data exchange. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And, you know,
Yeah.
my background comes from the U.S. government, U.S. Coast Guard intelligence that I did back in the 90s and stuff. And we didn't have as robust satellite communications as we do today. So we had to be particular and selective as the data that we actually pulled off of an operational site. So yeah, that is, we have to do real time analytics out at the source, and Videosoft is a good example of a company that has gone through that experience to do real time analytics on site, and, you know, or on the aircraft, to bring back just the important data, and then and manage it. So security is always important. Picking what we want to have secure, what we don't care about, you know. So
Absolutely. Well, Cheng-Yu, you mentioned Videosoft and data management. What are your thoughts?
Sure. I first of all, I want to echo every word that you know, Gino just said, and I would say this: since we deal also a lot our customer bases in the defense and the government arena, so data integrity, safety, security is really into our heart of all our business kind of conduct. So the first thing is ensure the data integrity, and I think beyond protocol, really, you know, Videosoft, what do we do is the data encoding and decoding. So along the process, if there are, you know, hackers and so on to get into the system, they can end up with a whole bunch of you know, source codes and cannot be used. However, we leave the data encryptions and decryptions to the end user, because every end user group, and also the, you know, end of the day, the service integrator will have this own sets of the proprietary data management services. So we leave that layer to the end user and the proxy integrators. Having said that, I think there is another aspect I wanted to add is beyond, you know, the bandwidth and the data transmissions protocols. I think there are another kind of attributes which is key for the evolving needs of AAM operations, which is the scalabilities, because I think the data source today is quite, you know, it's in its intrinsic form of the video data and so on. But later on, there will be a lot of AI analytics, as well as we call the telemetric metadata, to be transmitted along with all those source data to allow the command centers, if we look at a C2, you know, operations, to do a real-time decision-making power. So I think as a, you know, a collective ecosystem, we really, you know, what Videosoft can do is really to optimize all the data transmissions and sync up, you know, service requirement, as well as that intelligence level to allow that decision-making power to be exhibited to the end user. I think that's going to be more and more relevant as we explore the AAM operations in the future.
My goodness, you touched there on artificial intelligence and the role that will play in managing data, generating data, right? All the myriad of data and analytics that will come from that. Certainly a topic of discussion, perhaps for another webinar.
For another webinar.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll move on to what types of communication innovations can we expect? And we usually simplify it into a handful of links, SATCOM, LTE, or terrestrial type links. But I think there's perhaps a bit more to that. Again, referencing the Advanced Air Mobility Working Group's document, it's quite simplistic, I'd say, to put out a recommendation to research new methods of communication between aircraft, air traffic, but as well, between, again, different stakeholders. And quite frankly, a lot of this communications exchange will be between, operators and other stakeholders that require that type of communications link. So I'll start with you, Matt. Obviously, you're here on the terminal, on the SATCOM side of things, but your background, your history, you've touched on, different types of communications. Do you see any evolution in the types of communication innovations we can expect?
Yes, on both what I focus on, which is on the terminal side that goes on to a UAV, but also on what type of connectivity. So I think if you imagine ourselves in a few years' time, operators at the moment we talk to operators and educate them on the different types of connectivity. I think they won't care. I think they'll come to people like us and say, I just want some connectivity. Give me the smallest, lightest, lowest power terminal you've got. Tell me that it will be resilient. So what might that look like? It will be hybrid comms for sure. And Marek, you just said a mixture of satellite or terrestrial LTE. Well, every satellite network operator, even including such as yourselves, is thinking, going through this revolution in satellite connectivity and having a blend of GEO and LEO. So non-terrestrial networks, direct to device, push the cost down and mean very integrated silicon-based radios become possible, which means as opposed to our terminal, which is the size of a cereal bowl, the core radio will be a chip. And that just makes it lighter, gives better payload, and it will become more and more abstracted from the operator. So I think in 5 to 10 years' time, it is entirely to the benefit of the operator because it will weigh less, it will cost less, and the resilience and redundancy will be much more, there'll be more choice, choice is great. So yeah.
So pulling on that thread a little bit, what is driving or who is driving, could be who, could be a what is driving the innovation aspect of the communication? Should we not just be satisfied with what exists today? Is it not suitable enough for purpose? What do you think is the driving factor there?
Couple of things. I think one is cost. So, satellite communications is not ubiquitous, and I'm delighted to be partnered with yourselves at Viasat because we're building on the legacy of the Inmarsat network for this, the L-band, which is maritime and commercial aviation safety network. But that carries with it a certain operational cost and capital cost. Starlink is mixing up the market, but they don't have the safety legacy or even the all of the parameters that make it applicable to a safety service. So, but Starlink has shown, well, yeah, satellite data. It can be 2 orders of magnitude cheaper than traditional satellite networks. So as soon as that happens, that's an expectation. So there's a cost driver, and then inevitably there's going to be a capacity driver because the sheer volume or number of airframes that we imagine will be flying, and we're focused in this webinar only on UAVs. We're not talking about surface vehicles. We're not talking about IoT terminals. There will be a proliferation of connected devices or vehicles that require just a much bigger capacity because everybody's going to want more data if that data is cheaper.
Understood. Very good. Thank you. I want to make sure we have time to answer what would be our last two questions before we get to some of the audience feedback and questions. And these questions I'll ask to all three of the panelists, starting with Gino, Cheng-Yu, and then Matt. What, Gino, for you, does success look like for advanced mobility? And if you can project even into 5 years, 10 years, I mean, I've seen the business case move out multiple times, right? We'll be flying in 2 years, and then 3 years, and then 5 years, and all of a sudden, everything gets pushed by a couple of years. So what do you see the next, 5 years looking like in terms of operations for advanced air mobility? And what is missing today? What needs to be added? What needs to be in place for AAM operations to be commercially viable and sustainable?
So I see this space advancing fast. It's scaling fast. So I think what needs to be in place are systems that are scalable, that are truly scalable, And I think that the ability to cover the different markets, like you had mentioned, or Matt had mentioned, I think that's a real important aspect of that. So, the from all the way from transporting people versus just a quick video check somewhere. Those are different verticals, and we need to be able to seamlessly move between those verticals. And to be scalable, to be able to deliver that service amongst the different pieces of kit that are out there, or the different air vehicles, I think is really important. Down here in Florida, we've got customers that buy multiple UAVs that are the hardware is exactly the same, but they use it for different purposes. And right away they realize that to change the same piece of hardware to the different verticals, that becomes very difficult. So to have systems in place that can allow that scalability, in the sense that taking a piece of hardware and using it for surveillance one day, or moving equipment the other day, it has to be seamless, it has to be scalable, it has to be easy for these operators to do that. They have pilots in some cases doing these, and then they have some non-pilots, hobbyists running these. So that's a big mix. I think if we bring that closer together and learn from both those skill sets, we're going to be extremely successful.
In not so many words, did you imply regulations, or what exactly would be missing to have that link between, as you said, hobbyists and what is required for scalable operations?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think regulations are super important, and to make those regulations evolve to this space. I don't think that we can apply aviation regulations to this space, but we can't have just a free for all. I think that's real important. So I think I believe that what you're going to see is the regulations that come out of this space is going to proliferate. Well, I can't speak today. To the aviation industry, talking with different pilots, one story was in some Delta planes they have, or some Delta planes, part of the requirement is to have a grease pencil, because that became rule, I think, 20 years ago. So they never pulled that off. We can't operate that way if we can't adapt those different skill sets.
Absolutely agree. Cheng-Yu, you've been known to have a crystal ball. What is the 5 to 10 year outlook look for advanced air mobility? And again, do you believe other elements need to be in place for commercially sustainable operations?
Well, I think first of all, I'm not a fortune teller, but I think based on what Gino just pinned down, I think it nailed quite well to the key kind of evolutions. But the one aspects I can see will be critical in the future AAM operations involvement is the video awareness. And I think also this whole operations will allow the video become a primary operation data layer, but not only from a data transmission point of view or from a payload point of view, but from decision making enablement point of view. So I think how to ensure the scalable and also, you hate this word AI, but I think that the video intelligence into all our applications will be a common opportunity and also a challenge, both from regulatory and I think also from operations provisioning point of view for us to crack down in the next 2 or 3 years.
Fantastic. I do like AI, don't get me wrong. It just has to be partitioned and used in the correct way. Matt, same two questions to you. Success in the next 5 to 10 years, and essentially what you think could be added to make this a more viable industry.
I think success looks like predictability and reliability. So, driving your car down the freeway, you understand what people are going to do around you. Certain signals inform users around them. So getting to that where there is some muscle memory in the system, which goes from regulators, so regulators being presented with a safety case, or even better, operators being able to self-certify because they've done it before and that is all understood. So speed from idea of operation to operation is key for anybody to make any money. So none of us succeed unless we make some money out of this. So profitability is key in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think you were right earlier on when you said actually no one's going to solve this with a single vertically integrated entity, which means multiple service providers come together. It makes it hard to predict that the end cost of $1 per hour of flight or $1 per kilometer, because that's all that people really want. So getting to that point of being able to predict, I'm going to do this mission, here's my $1 per hour. So what is needed for that? I think it is some maturity in the offerings. I think it is some scale. And then unfortunately, I think there's probably going to be some convergence in the market. So I find this a tremendously exciting industry to be in because everybody's having, one of 10 bright ideas to solve any single element of this, but it's not all going to survive. And actually, by having all of those companies at the moment means that it's very confusing for an operator. So bit of convergence, the cream will rise to the top, and everybody just gets a bit more understanding of what's needed for that, a reliable and then repeatable mission.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'll close. This is our last slide before we go to some of the audience questions. I think from my perspective, certainly this integrated ecosystem with different service providers does require a certain amount of regulation or a certain amount of cohesiveness in terms of the data sharing. We can't just have multiple sources of data feeding again into multiple stakeholders, that the spider web that was shown earlier. So from my perspective, and it's been shown even through some of our trials here with Galaxy One, Videosoft, and Gotonomi, when the service providers come together, it does create for a beautiful outcome, a reliable outcome, and an outcome that can hopefully lead to sustainable and commercial operations. So if I will stop sharing my screen for a moment so I could get back to the Q&A. And I do have it here. So we have a few open questions here. Let's start with, here we have one. With respect to weather service providers, do you envision that a one-size-fits-all weather service for advanced air mobility, or will those services vary as a function of the AAM operators' operating requirements? So it's around weather service for AAM, and whether or not that service will function based on the AAM operators' operating requirements. So again, taking into account different vehicles here. Who wants to take a stab at that? Gino, you want to maybe kick us off?
I knew you were going to ask me.
Of course.
So I want to point to one interesting part of that or that question, and that's the sense that one of the unique things about Viasat service is that it's been designed for inclement weather. So in a full you know, downpour, snow, sleet, what have you. Their L-band frequencies and their antennas have been designed for that type of an operation. So one of the one of the elements that is interesting is the fact that we put that to the test. We put Matt's equipment to the test down here in Florida in the absolute worst weather that you can have down here that no services work on side by side. And only Matt's hardware and the Viasat network operates. So I think weather is really, really important. I think that there's going to be some unique differences in certain parts of the world, wind shear, those kind of things. So yeah, I think there'll be a couple flavors, but I don't think there'll be as many flavors as there are today. I think that need to have a building block to have some very base sets of weather requirements and be able to build off of those and maybe even collaborate off of those. So yeah, from a weather perspective, this is where we shine. We're designed to work in the absolute worst environments. As long as we're on board, you could use whatever service you want, but you can always rely on the on our frequencies. So I hope that kind of answers some of it. So yeah, I think it's important. I don't think we're going to see as many, but I think that some just a very few very specialized boxes, I think, of weather services will win out on this and be scalable.
Fantastic. Thank you. There's one here with regards to terrestrial cellular networks. And how do you see the role of terrestrial cellular networks play in the C2 link that we discussed? Will any needed terrestrial cellular connectivity come from an MNO or will be a private cellular network? I might actually tackle that and then maybe get you, Matt, to chime in. Certainly when it comes to the ubiquitous coverage that Matt mentioned, you can rely on SATCOM in 99.9% of the world, and then a lot of that is supplemented by terrestrial cellular. But again, beyond a certain flight level, right, there's no cellular availability there, and you have to look to more aviation grade type communications and terrestrial links. So certainly at the moment, a lot of the MNOs, a lot of the cellular network providers are positioning and posturing to a certain extent in the field, trying to understand whether or not these will be very specific networks that are, actually on a separate network with antennas pointing to the sky, or whether this is just another tangent, just another element of the existing network today. So from my perspective, it may not necessarily be a specific private network, but it'll certainly be a specific service to MNO providers today. At least those are my feelings. Matt, do you feel any differently about that? You're on mute, Matt.
Yeah, I think if we look at where we are now, then a huge proportion of the proof of concepts take place with existing LTE standards, be it 4G or 5G. And there's a product called L-Site Halo that allows 4 different LTE SIMs to be plugged into it to provide that resilience, but it's resilience only within the operating confines that Marek just described, i.e. there is a maximum altitude. But this is such a complex environment that there are plenty of missions that will only operate below 1,000 feet or something. So at the moment, the existing infrastructure is playing a really fantastic role in allowing a lot of vehicles to get airborne. But I think I agree with you, Marek, that opportunities will be spotted to tailor and optimize that service to suit an aerial vehicle, just as Viasat have got a small number of satellites providing network across the world, but there is a Valaris service that is tailored, and the ecosystem that is tailored to vehicles. And Marek has colleagues in the government space who have a slightly different tailored service for MilGov applications. So, which is all then about optimizing. So as we go further down the road, adjustments become less coarse, more optimized, trying to shave off. You're trying to find small percentages of efficiency gain and performance, which is where then they'll diverge from handset requirements.
I want to mention something too on that. Viasat provides real-time individual uptime availability statistics to all of their customers that are live on the network. There's no cellular operator or LTE operator that does that today. I don't know that they have any plans to provide that. So I think until that happens, until there's real live availability monitoring and reporting, I find it hard to believe that anybody would be able to even go down that path. So Viasat does that today for major aircraft and military aircraft, and now through the Valaris network for these operators for AAM. So I think until that happens, I find it hard to believe that you're going to have a compelling a C2 link over LTE operators to even provide accountability or reporting.
Agreed. Very, very good points there in terms of, availability and uptime and statistics. I fully agree with that. I think we have time for one more question. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have time for one more. Cheng-Yu, we're going to take a little bit of a tangent here, maybe step away from physical link for a second. The question is around vertiports, sorry.
Okay.
The interest is the panel's view regarding vertiports focused on passengers and the integration challenges around that in relation to conventional autonomous UAS operations using the same vertiport infrastructure. So we had a diagram a little while back there with regards to vertiports, and the question here is integration challenges in relation to conventional autonomous UAS operations for the same vertiport infrastructure. And the reason why I ask you is because definitely I see that video plays a big part in that, at least in some of the piloted flights today that are controlled. You want to see the landing zone, you want to see the vertiport infrastructure, but I guess this question is a little bit bigger than that as well. So thoughts around UAS vertiport infrastructure?
Well, my take on it is I think although we moving away from infrastructure layer, but I think all the vertiport visibilities and operations are still around it with the infrastructure that we are building around. First of all, let me just echo what Gino and Matt said on the earlier questions. And I think that in the multi-link environment, I think the SATCOM, especially the EMASAT or now Viasat L-band provide a core backbone from aviation safety down to even the passenger kind of a connectivity. So that has been a backbone from all the airborne operations, whether it's unmanned, BVLOS, and to or a passenger kind of aircraft AAM operations. So having said that, if we look at from application point of view, later on there will be a lot of video enabled kind of operations that we can leverage the volatility of the connectivity that we put on space. The key challenge would be the tailored managed services, because unmanned and BVLOS will have different sets of the particular kind of a requirement. However, the underpinning common foundation would be how we can have enough bandwidth and also the protocol to enable those data to be shared in a reliable, resilient, and again in the scalable way. I think this is where all the ecosystem that from Viasat, Galaxy One, and Gotonomi can play an essential role to help to drive the architecture into a scalable kind of AAM operations for the vertiport.
Thank you very much. So we have a few moments left. Gino, Cheng-Yu, Matt, any final thoughts in regard to, service providers and their role in the advanced observability ecosystem? Probably about 30 seconds each. Gino, I'm going to start with you.
Oh man. I think it's important that the service providers and anyone who wants to be part of that system collaborate with other service providers as well. I think that's where the successes come in. We operate with and support other service providers and allow this to allow them to have a unique unified delivery. And I think that's ultra important. If you don't have a vendor providing something that's unified, it's not going to operate. You're going to have way more work on your hands than you thought of, and you're going to be doing tasks other than delivering your product. So I think that's super important.
Well said. Collaboration is key. Matt.
I'll go next, and I'll just give the attendees confidence that is already happening, because you've got in front of you 4 different service providers, and you need many more to become an operational delivery service or a surveillance company. And so Gotonomi provides terminals. On our multi-link, we actually install the Videosoft application and provide free trial licenses for operators. With Gotonomi, you raise a PO for the terminal and the airtime contract. By doing that, you get the Galaxy One fleet management tools and the RTM, the remote terminal manager, that provides the telemetry. So already, by only interfacing with one of us, you get the offerings from all 4 of us. And so I think Gino's right. There is a responsibility on the service providers to do a load of the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
Thank you, Matt. Cheng-Yu, 30-second closing.
Well, yeah, well said. I just needed 10 seconds. On top of that, I think the cherry on the cake is the video native airspace operations. And the Videosoft, based on all the infrastructure, manage the service. Galaxy One, Viasat, and Gotonomi provides will give you the decision-making empowerment based on the resilient and also reliable video feeds and video intelligence.
Thank you very much. I mean, from my perspective, as a closing remark, I'd say again, collaboration is key. I think this is proof and example, as Matt said, that we're all here today, and we've had successful flight trials to demonstrate the collaboration. And it's always nice to see progress move forward together in unison. And I'm sure scalable operations for advanced observability will come in the very near future. So at this point, Shannon, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, gosh, thank you guys so much for this great discussion. What a great panel. So interesting. We had more questions submitted than we had time to answer. So if your question didn't get answered live, just know that we'll be sharing it with all of our panelists here for some additional follow-up post-webinar. All right. Well, guys, Gino, Cheng-Yu, Matt, Marek, thank you so much for the conversation today. Thank you to Viasat for their support of today's webinar. Attendees, you are going to receive a webinar recording link within the next couple of days so that you can take this back and watch it on demand. If you have any questions for our team, you can reach out to us at education@auvsi.org. Lastly, today's program is copyrighted with all rights reserved, but thank you again for your time. Thank you, attendees, for joining us this afternoon. What a great conversation, and we will hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.